Welcome back to the show. Check it out. Ripple case court orders an alternative solution. And guess who's getting mBridge? Because the BIS is handing it over. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $2.48 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is off by 4%. 70,700 plus right now for Bitcoin, 2,500 plus for Ethereum, 120 billion plus market cap for Tether USD, 35 billion plus. XRP is 51 cents. We're off 2.9 on the 24 and off 3.8 on the 7-day. So most of that in the last 24. Range of price between 51 and 52 cents. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's get started. There have been and you talk about activated, it really is. Decentralized identity on the XRP ledger just got activated. Right there, ladies and gentlemen. Decentralized identity credentials, permission domains, permission dexes, etc. There is a wave of amendments that are on the move right now for the XRP ledger, this being one of them. Super, super exciting times, and it makes me feel like, why now? And I think why now? Because we all know the real USD is coming, legislation is coming, and I think that clears the way for the financial institutions and the banks to begin to come for the first time ever in a way we've never witnessed, and I couldn't be more excited. Let's get going. Blackrock's IBIT ETF recorded nearly $600 million worth of inflows. You know what? This tells you just how in demand the product is. And listen, and think of it when we really start to see the downturn in the actual economy and the stock market. If you think the demand is high now, wait till retirees start realizing that their retirement is dwindling and they're living on a fixed income off their pensions in retirement. You know, this is when you'll see the flows open up even more, I believe, as they begin to invest deeper. And right here from Eric Bokunis, Canary has filed for a Solana ETF. I believe this is number 2 after Van Eck. And remember, Canary also filed for an XRP ETF. Shout out to Steve McClug for that. And Canary is formerly known as Valkyrie, for those that don't know. So, yeah, he is no stranger to the game. $3.4 trillion JP Morgan says a Trump win could boost Bitcoin's price. The first Bitcoin election is in front of us, ladies and gentlemen, as far as that prediction right there. So now JP Morgan, who obviously didn't like it, it's a pet rock. Now they're saying, man, you know, Trump gets in, man, it's really going to push that Bitcoin price. My, how things change so quickly. This is the head of Trump's transition team. It's Howard Lutnick from Cantor Fitzgerald, Can't talk this morning. Hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure to Bitcoin and billions to Tether. And remember, Cantor Fitzgerald is also running the reserves for Tether. And he says everything's fine. But the U.S. government doesn't think so. More on that in a second. But what I want to play for you now is his take. Listen to this.
Every time Bitcoin dips, I'm going to be the buyer.
This is Trump's transition team guy.
Right, Trust me, I know why you're doing the lending.
It's all coming. You're figuring it out.
Listen, you don't have to explain that one around here.
So yeah, I got the 50% Bitcoin, I got the Bitcoin lending, but basically what you're going to see is Cantor Fitzgerald is going to be the sponsor of Bitcoin into traditional finance. Mm-hmm. And so we will be the leader of it. And I'll pull out this podcast in years to come and say, see, I told you, because no one's going to remember.
Of course.
Right? But all the banks, after we do it and show people how to do it right, they'll all copy. Mm-hmm. And so the asset of Bitcoin will just, as it becomes more accepted, it will become more valuable.
And think more broadly as digital assets or crypto broadly, the ones that remain.
And the whole Bitcoin nation should just call it a commodity, never a currency.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Just call it a commodity. Because if it's a currency, you're attacking the politicians of the country, right? You're trying to replace my currency with yours. But if you say, hey, I'm just oil. I'm just gold. I'm just a commodity. Leave me be, right? Then they'll leave you be. And that is true. And it will be why Bitcoin, which is rare and is special, will become ever more rare, as we both know, ever more valuable over time. It'll be financed just like gold is.
Digital assets instead of just Bitcoin. It'll be financed just like gold is. I got something for you here in a second.
Right? Gold is, it's not like super financeable,
But
it's
is.
financeable. Oil, it's not super financeable, but it's financeable, right? Bitcoin will be financeable. Bitcoin will be way, way, way higher, sometimes lower. You just have to have faith.
Well, listen, with that being said, again, Trump's transition team guy, Cantor Fitzgerald, also holding reserves for Tether. Obviously a big Bitcoin guy. But what I wanted to say is the way he makes the example of gold is financeable. Oil is financeable. Bitcoin is financeable. Digital assets are financeable, not just Bitcoin. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is because I believe what we're witnessing isn't just the birth of a new asset class. What we're witnessing, I believe, ultimately, even in a more macro view, is the transition from Keynesian economics, a debt-based system, to Austrian economics model, where it's an asset-backed system, which means you will need some of these assets that he's mentioning here. You will need assets in order to borrow collateral or get collateral put up to borrow something against it. That's the way Austrian economics works. And if you understand the introduction of this new digital asset class, this may be the way that some people pull their families out of poverty, out of the generational cycle of being broke even, not even poverty, just being broke. That's what it looks like to me. Now, whether it's a currency or commodity still remains, because you got Trump saying he don't even think there should be tax on it. So we'll see how this goes. Meanwhile, Bitwise CIO tells Yahoo Finance, I think we're going above 100,000. We're not going to listen to this whole thing, but just a quick clip of this. It's a great clip.
I think the most important thing for Bitcoin is that the election happens. Regardless of a Trump win or a Harris win, the regulatory setting for Bitcoin is improving. And I think that's what you're seeing reflected in the price. Of course, in the short term, crypto favors a Trump victory over a Harris victory. But really, Bitcoin doesn't need Washington to succeed. Regardless of what happens, institutions are moving into the space, adoption is rising, ETF flows are happening. I think we go higher either way. It just might be a little bit faster under Trump.
Yeah, and then when we talk about that, maybe a clarity from a regulation perspective, right? How much of that is necessary in order to continue that momentum, even potentially past 100,000?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I think we're going above 100,000 on Bitcoin. I think the regulatory clarity you're talking about actually matters more for the so-called altcoins, for Ethereum on down. Those are more exposed to regulatory risk. So I would expect an altcoin rally, even more so than a Bitcoin rally in the event of a Trump win. But regardless, I think both are moving higher.
Why does it?
Wonderful point that Matt just made right there. And shout out to Matt Hogan from Bitwise. I think he's spot on for that. The regulatory clarity means even more for the rest of the altcoins. And let's look at this fact. We know XRP has legal clarity. It is not a security. Federal judge. End of story. SEC's not even appealing that fact, right? The U.S. Treasury said in 2015, not only is it not a security, they call it a currency. So that gets real good. But what's missing to really set it into motion? Legislation. Why legislation? So that way the financial system can use it. It's the last thing we need to fall so we can see it all begin to happen the way we always known it will. Meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury says crypto stablecoin growth is increasing demand for Treasury bills. I told you it was a new use case to help soak up those hyperinflated bonds. And they know it better than all of us. Tell me legislation is coming without telling me legislation is coming. Now, to find out about this Tether investigation, right? It's all happening at the same time. Meanwhile, the Treasury's dropped this 17-page bombshell report on digital assets and tokenization. And inside of it, they don't mind bringing up the fact that stable coins are there and they are an issue. And they go on to highlight in this that Tether, a collapse of a major stablecoin like Tether, could result in a fire sale of the U.S. Treasury holdings. Yeah, for those that need a translation here, and I know it's not many, that's not good news for Tether. Let's change gears very quickly here. There is 2 court cases going on for against Ripple right at the moment. One is the SEC versus Ripple. The other one is the California case, Zakanoff versus Ripple. Now, in this Zakanoff case, the court has ordered and made a decision here that, in fact, what needs to happen is that they need to get together for an alternative resolution. U.S. court has issued an order asking Ripple and other parties to consider an alternative resolution. Plaintiff and defendant CEO Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple XRP, seek final judgment and stay on claims. Ripple versus SEC case in Second Court of Appeals, scheduled an initial brief in January, as we know, and XRP, we know where it's trading. But nevertheless, this is basically saying the order from the court, Judge Phyllis Hamilton, in the California court case against Zakanoff, affirmed that the parties about their motion to seek final judgment and stay in the XRP lawsuit. However, the judge ordered the parties needed to consider an alternative resolution of filing a voluntary dismissal without prejudice and of the remaining individual claim. Notably, the claim is subjected to refiling after the resolution of the appeal on the case claims of securities law violated by Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, and XRP2 LLC. If the parties are amendable to this alternative resolution, the court requests that they file an amended proposed order. And if the parties are not amendable, the court requests that they file a notice to that effect by November 4th, 2024. So just a few days away to see if both parties will be amendable or not. Now, what I looked up on Grok, on the AI, and said, what is alternative resolutions? It's exactly what I believed it to be. It's asking them to mediate, to come up with some kind of an agreement without the court having to make the decision. It seems like to me a lot that went on just like when I was a kid and me and my brothers would get in an argument and start fighting. My father would walk into the room and simply say, now you guys either figure this out or I'm going to come back in here and figure it out. And if I have to figure it out, neither one of you are going to like what the solution is, right? And then very quickly, my brothers and I would forget what we were even mad at, right? You know what? Let's park this car, right? So I'll be interested to see what yields by November 4th. If it's anything like what my father used to do, I think they're going to be amendable, but we'll see. The BIS handed over the mBridge cross-border CBDC payment project to the central banks involved. It follows discussions of BRICS payment system. The BIS will not engage in projects that are conducive to violating sanctions. Now, this we covered yesterday. The BIS said, look, we're dropping mBridge. And we know for a fact one of the pilots, if not the pilot, of mBridge is in fact XRP. James Wallace from Ripple. Take a quick listen. As soon as it plays, I promise it's going to be amazing. This is the kind of red carpet treatment you guys get around here. You know what I mean? Just the best of the best. Elite, high dollar systems, mechanics, the engineering, the production skills around here. As you can see, we do not have any editing at all, right?
And you have
there we go.
Real, or digital pound. You obviously need to have some way to interact cross-border. Yeah. So I think the BIS call this a multi-CBDC model. One of the ideas is you use a sort of a neutral bridge currency to go from one to the other, similar to the model I explained earlier with our on-demand liquidity.
There you have it. So that's the acknowledgement that XRP Ledger and ODL is definitely working inside of one of the models of mBridge, if not the model. It was questionable yesterday, like, why is BIS ditching this? And the BIS has made it really clear that the only reason they're ditching it is simply because of the fact that they cannot work with countries that are sanctioned. So there's no way that they can participate in this. Very quickly, let me move through this if I could, because this is important, right? We know that mBridge is connected to XRP Ledger in some way, if not just one of many pilots. So let's check this out. So mBridge cross-border CBDC payment system for 4 years has been involved with the BIS. Today, General Manager Augustin Carson said the project had been handed over to the central banks. The central banks are, listen who they are, this is important, China, Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, and the UAE. Some of which we have many deep ties with Ripple. mBridge uses blockchain to enable commercial banks to make cross-border payments and using wholesale central bank digital currencies, the design to support local currency payments. I remind you too, Saudi Arabia is a big partner of this mBridge, knowing that that is also the home of the petrodollar as well at the moment. Now, which is in question. The G20 has goals of making cross-border payments faster, as we know, and you come down here, the BRICS bridge issue. So basically, let me get to this. During the recent BRICS summit, discussions of a BRICS bridge payment system continued, given China and the UAE are BRICS members alongside sanctioned countries like Iran and Russia. The perception that mBridge could in any way overlap with BRICS bridge puts the BIS in a tricky position. Talking to Santander International Banking Conference, Mr. Augustin Carstens addressed this issue and said whatever projects we put together should not be a conduit to violate sanctions. He said, mBridge is not the BRICS bridge, and I have to say that categorically, mBridge was not created to cater to the needs of BRICS. It was put together to satisfy the broad central bank necessities, not just BRICS, right? So, interesting statement there. He goes on and says, Mr. Carson stated that politics was not the driver of the BIS handover. It says, I would say that the project has been so successful that we can declare we've graduated out of that project. The BIS is leaving that project not because it was a failure and not because of political considerations, but mostly because we have been involved for 4 years and it is at a level where the partners can carry it on by themselves. The mBridge project progressed to the minimum viable project, MVP, stage in June. And although Carsten said he still needs many years of work, mBridge is not mature enough to start operating, he added. In a statement, the mBridge Steering Committee expressed its appreciation to the BIS, saying that the handover would allow the BIS to redirect resources to other innovative projects in earlier stages. The project team remains fully committed to unlocking the full potential of mBridge platform and will continue to explore potential advancements in the platform from the MVP to full production stage. Handing over the mBridge project to participating central banks and institutions will have no impact in relation to legal and operational arrangements on the existing and participating commercial banks. That's where we are right there. Meanwhile, Bank of China, Hong Kong announced it is the first fully operational Hong Kong bank that has integrated with mBridge. It will use the platform for select corporate customer payments. It's getting phased in, right? It's not going away. It's getting phased in. The BIS is backing away from it because they know they can't be a part of something that helps certain countries avoid sanctions. That's why. But they remarked here, it is highly successful, right? It has been so successful that we can declare we graduated from the project. And they're not leaving because it was a failure and not because of political considerations, but because it's time to move on to other projects. That's what's happening. And that has got me bullish as you know what. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. Come on in.